Hello, I'm Dr. Mary Amore, Executive Director of Mayslake Ministries, and we're going to continue our conversation today about reading sacred scripture. On our other video, we talked about reading sacred scripture for personal enrichment using the method of Lectio Divina, where you would read a particular scripture passage over once, twice, and a third time, and then you close the book and you sit with that. And you let God speak to you. That method for reading sacred scripture is probably the universal basis for reading scripture all the time. But there's particular lenses that we can also read scripture through using the Lectio Divina method. And one of those I'd like to talk to you today about is Ignatian. When we read sacred scripture through an Ignatian lens, we're tapping into the creative side of our brain. Because if you take a scripture passage, for instance, Jesus feeding the 5,000 people with a few fish and a few loaves of bread. If you're going to read that scripture passage using an Ignatian lens, you're going to imagine that you're there right in the scene. Perhaps you're one of the apostles helping feed the people. Perhaps you're one of the people sitting on the ground being fed by the miraculous fish and loaves. Perhaps you are just yourself in the scripture watching the story unfold. Now, why, you might say to yourself, would we want to read sacred scripture using our imagination like that? We do that because it creates this intimate relationship with Christ. We put ourselves right in the scripture story, so that we can become one with Jesus as he's walking down the road, as he's, hanging on the cross, and we share in his suffering. If we pick up sacred scripture, especially the New Testament Gospels, and we read it, and we sit there and we imagine that we are right there with Jesus, and we do that over and over again, day after day, we will begin to cultivate a true personal relationship with Jesus. Ignatian, the Ignatian lens for reading sacred scripture is also wonderful for children because they have such great imaginations. And so often we spend all of our time teaching our children the Bible stories, which is great. Memorize them. But now next time you read a Bible story to a child, invite them to put themselves right in the story, to be themselves walking with Jesus, talking with Jesus, sitting at the feet of Jesus alongside Mary while Martha's in the kitchen scurrying around. Use your imagination so that God can reveal himself to you in a deeper and more profound way in and through sacred scripture. Remember, the Ignatian lens taps into our imagination, and our imagination is a gift from God. So today I encourage you, open the Bible, begin to read, and place yourself right there in the story. What do you see? What do you hear? What do you smell? What do you experience as you journey with Jesus from death to new life? Thank you, and God bless.